The families of those who died in a tragic crash that claimed the lives of 20 people on the N2 in the uPhongolo Municipality in northern KwaZulu-Natal last week say the community has been concerned about the impact of trucks in the area for a very long time now. This week, Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula released findings of the accident report, which found that the driver of the truck has been negligent, driving for about a kilometer towards oncoming traffic before colliding with the bakkie carrying the children. Now, let's discuss this further. We're now joined via Zoom by Gavin Kelly, Chief Executive Officer at the Road Freight Association. Gavin, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and of course, happy Heritage Day to you. But Gavin, first let's get your reaction, to the incident report that was tabled by Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula this week.
Good afternoon, Unati, and good afternoon to all the viewers. And yes, on this Heritage Day, we have to discuss things like this that really make all of us very, very sad. And obviously, from the Road Freight Association, from all its members and the whole industry, our sincere condolences go out to those families who are bereaved in such a horrible manner. All right, let's look at what the minister had to say. Obviously, this is what is of concern, is that even though you can have good systems in place, or you can have the best of intentions, either as the owner of a transport company, a fleet operator, or a driver, things do go wrong. So the minister is saying that, and I would presume this is based on what they've seen on the video footage that was doing its rounds on social media, and from what they've seen doing an investigation at the case, that the driver seems to be the reason for this accident having happened. All good and well. That's all good and well. Not something we like to hear, that's something that seems to be one-sided, but what we do need to understand really are two things, Unati. The first is going to be this. How do we prevent it from happening again, this tragedy? How do we prevent it? And secondly, what was it that caused the driver to do this? Was the driver unwell? Did he or she pass out? Was there something else? So that we can really drill down into that and learn from that, and then make sure we don't repeat this again.
Now, you have also called, for action to be taken against, of course, non-compliant operators, as you've been saying. What kind of action are we talking about? And also, does it stop there in terms of action needed to be taken? Can it be extended to the owners?
Well, the answer, the second part of your question is yes. It can be extended to the owners, to those who operate fleets on the road, and that piece of legislation has been around since 1996 in terms of our current National Road Traffic Act. It has been around in a slightly different form before that, but yes, action can be taken. Action is taken when it can be proved that the fleet operator or the owner of the truck knew that this was likely to happen. Now, that's difficult to prove. How would the owner know that this was going to happen? Well, say, for example, when this accident investigation was done and it was found that the truck itself, its components were faulty or its control systems were faulty, then you can start looking at the owner or the operator of the truck in terms of maintenance. Here, the minister is saying this is solely due to the driver. Can the operator be held accountable for that? Yes, in many regards, the operator can if the operator hasn't done what he or she needs to do. And that is refresher training, ensuring that drivers do not get into cabs if they do not meet minimum requirements in terms of rest periods, in terms of health, in terms of being able to drive these sorts of vehicles and control these sorts of vehicles. Also around the case in terms of how do they remunerate these drivers. There's this perception, and there are a couple of people saying that drivers get paid per trip. They don't get a monthly salary. So is that happening? So if the investigation shows that the things that the operator or the owner doesn't do, or the things that they put in place creates this sort of ripe situation, then they too can be held accountable.
Now, one of the things that Minister Mbalula said was that, they're trying to move cargo, transportation, if I can call it that, from the road to rail. I mean, how practical is that given, the situation with our rail in South Africa currently? And I mean, in terms of a plan that he's yet to, of course, announce and table, how feasible would this be?
Well, Lunati, we've been trying to do this for a number of years already. There's no secret that everybody who's involved in logistics has said that there is far too much freight on road, especially in certain types of freight. And what we saw happening in the last couple of weeks was around the movement of coal, and coal traveling long distances from mines to ports or to wherever it is being utilized should be going by rail, really for two reasons. The first is that if you are transporting that sort of bulk, that amount of coal over a set point between an origin, a mine, and where it goes to, you would be able to move that sort of cargo far safer, far more, probably at a cheaper rate along a railway line. That is what has been proven around the world. The second thing is that this road being used near uPhongolo wasn't built to take this sort of vehicle traffic or these sorts of loads, these sorts of masses or weights of the vehicles. So we are doing tremendous damage to our road network, not because the trucks are necessarily overloaded, but because those roads were never built for that sort of traffic. Is it feasible? Well, that's the good question. Look at the state of our railways. I think we need to somehow come up with a plan to protect our railway lines and the infrastructure, and then make sure that we can make them operate efficiently so that the customers, those who want to move their coal, remember it's not the truck owner's coal, he's working, transporting for somebody, that the owner of that coal would then want to move the coal by rail. That's the really tough, tall order to meet.
So you're supporting the move from cargo, on our roads to rail, which is one of the points that the minister, of course, has mentioned. Community members are also saying that the reckless driving of truck, drivers has been ongoing for years now. So a solution from the Transport Department seems to be one, moving, cargo from road to rail, but also, creating a better infrastructure with that announcement that, the cost of SANRAL's interventions would then cost to an amount of 2.5 billion rand. I mean, what do you say to those interventions that the minister has been talking about in terms of just creating more capacity on those particular roads while this plan of moving cargo from roads to rail, is ongoing? Your reaction to that?
Well, in RT, the Road Freight Association has always maintained that rail needs to play its role in moving certain cargoes and in being part of the greater logistics chain. We've always said there's a place for rail. There are some things rail can't do. It can't do the last mile or the first mile because you can't have railway lines built everywhere around the country between a delivery point like a retail store and, say, a distribution center. So rail needs to play its part, and we support that. Whether there's enough money in terms of what's now been stated to get rail to play that part, I think it's going to be far more than 2.5 million. I think we're looking at a couple of 100 billion to get rail to play its part. Definitely what's happening right now in this area around uPhongolo, we've got to make sure that the rail system and the port system, where there has been a problem with the loading systems and the getting of the coal off the railway trucks, the actual, rail trucks, not road trucks, that needs to be fixed. And if that is still a problem, it needs to be resolved. So yes, there is a case to be made to get certain cargo off the road. How long it's going to take, I think that we've been talking about this for a very, very long time. We need to take that action now. And it's a basket of a whole series of tasks or projects that need to come together that will add then to road safety, add or look after our infrastructure, both road and rail, and then, of course, make the cost of logistics in South Africa far lower than what we do pay for the moving of freight on roads.
Gavin, appreciate your time. Thank you so much, for making time to speak to us this afternoon. Gavin Kelly, CEO at Road Freight Association.